It's a great pleasure to meet you, Dr. David Frawley, and it's a namaskaram. Hearty congratulations for getting awarded the highest civilian award in the country, the Padma Bhushan, and wish you for greater success. It's a great pleasure to meet you in India, and yesterday we had a very great session with you in the Tamil Nadu Young Thinkers Forum, and in fact I wanted to have a conversation with you, and it comes through the dialogue with His Holiness Dalai Lama. He has told to revive the ancient Indian culture.
Yes.
And you are one of the icons who actually revived our ancient Indian culture in the Western world. So what do you think about this Ayurveda being relevant today in the...
Well, Ayurveda is of course the Vedic system of healing for body and mind. And even more so, the Ayurveda is the Vedic way of right living for body and mind. So it's not just a question of you have a disease and you treat it, you have to know how to live correctly. And that is what Ayurveda teaches us. Today we have a system of medicine that's very much involved in treating acute diseases, but doesn't know how to help us live correctly. So the result is we're having more diseases, more unhappiness, more suffering, particularly at a psychological level. And at the psychological level, yoga and Ayurveda teach us how to properly use, balance, understand, harmonize the mind, which is not a matter of chemistry or drugs, it's a matter of right perception, right thinking, right values, and meditation.
And if you look at the recent time, Dr. David, a lot of youth are actually moving towards the Western world of thoughts,
Yes.
leaving the Indian thoughts.
Yes.
So do you think that the youth today has to embrace the Western thoughts or the Indian thoughts? If it's Indian thoughts, how is it relevant to the modern youth?
Right.
And how they can transform their lives
Right.
using the thoughts of the Indian ancient culture?
Right. Well, what's happening obviously throughout the world is the information technology is becoming very dominant. And naturally that's a vehicle predominantly for Western culture and Western values. It has benefits via business, communication, but it also tends to scale down any deeper values and make people more, you might say, overactive, overstimulated in their nervous systems, in their outer lives, and losing the ability to look within.
Right.
So technology is a very good instrument, but it's not a very good master.
Right.
You as a human being are not a machine. You can't find happiness or well-being the way a machine can be programmed. So the problem is the youth today is emulating the machine and the equipment rather than understanding or connecting to their own inner intelligence and creativity, which Vedic thought teaches, which yoga, Ayurveda teach us. So it's not enough just to have technology, you have to master the technology. If the technology is mastering you, you're in trouble. And that is what is happening today. And the youth is often having more of a relationship with the technology than with the other people or even with their own thoughts. So technology in itself is not bad, but it does require the proper guidance of a higher awareness which the Vedic knowledge can bring.
That actually makes me to ask the next question. Today the youth who have to get transformed, let's assume that they wanted to embrace the Indian system of culture. But our education system is more like colonial system,
Right.
which our Britishers left in 1947, which we tried to emulate in the education.
Right.
We also tried to emulate in the administration,
Right.
and some bit of also there in the democracy. Now, how do we actually reform the system which is existing based on your thought process?
Well, first of all, we can't look to the system to guide us.
Right.
And we can't look to the modern educational schools to teach the deeper values. So there must be the yoga, the meditation taught at home, taught at ashrams by gurus and private classes. That separate system of education should be revived.
Right.
And should be there. In the context of the schools, there are certain things of meditation and right living that can be taught, and those should also be brought in and affirmed. But we shouldn't look to the government to change people, rather we should look to the people to change the government.
Rather the inner thoughts, the inner strength of the people.
Well, first you have to take responsibility for your own life.
Exactly.
If you want to be healthy, you can't let the doctor do it for you.
Right, right.
Because your health or well-being depends upon how you live and act every day and moment by moment. It's not something that can be given to you from the outside. So the problem with our education is that we're not taught how to relate to ourselves, relate to our environment,
Right.
and understand our inner nature. We're only taught to look outward, and that is why we're losing control of our lives. We're becoming unhappy, we're becoming overstressed. So the youth has to recognize that true youthfulness is not just running after external things,
Right.
but developing your own energy, awareness, judgment, perception,
Right.
creativity,
Right.
which requires not simply the right social media,
Right.
it requires your own inner
Yes.
development
Right.
through meditation.
And if you look at the family system in India, it had a very good family system.
Yes.
But today in India also, they are actually moving towards the individualism,
Right.
which the Western
Yes.
world has adopted over a period of time.
Yes.
Do you think that the family system is important for the present generation? And whether the world should understand the Indian system so that the entire world can embrace the family culture?
Yes. Well, what's happened is, of course, the family system has been destroyed
Right.
in the Western world. Many children are born in single-family homes.
Right.
The value of family isn't there. So in this individualistic Western society, you have the individual and the state.
Right.
There
Right.
is nothing further in between. Or there's personal family, the personal friendships come in. So the destruction of the family system has caused a lot of confusion.
Right.
And we see a lot of people now, old in middle age and older, suffering because they don't have the family system to support them. And even the youth, they run off with their friends, they do with their friends. And we see a breakdown of social harmony, culture, and organic values from that. Hindu thought teaches Vasudeva Kutumbakam.
Right.
The universe is one family, but in the West there's no family. The universe is, so what's necessary is to recognize the organic nature of life.
Right.
For
Right.
example, we have in nature, we have plants and flowers, and we have different ecosystems.
Right.
So in a human being, you have a human body that has different organs and functions. You can't say that the legs should take over the role of the arms, or the arms should take over the role of the legs, because you want equality of the organism as a whole. So we have to bring back that organic understanding of life to appreciate not only family, but also community and other organic orders of social development and integration besides simply the individual and the state. The isolated individual is always going to feel lonely,
Right.
unhappy, and stressed out. And in the Western world today, with all the affluence, the rate of psychological unhappiness has gone up quite a bit.
Right, exactly. And if you look at the Indian system, we have the caste-based system. We had the caste-based system.
Yes,
I always had a perspective
Yes.
that communities are the building blocks of India
yes,
from the economic point of view.
right.
From the political point of view, the communities actually got distracted. And today, the profession that was relating to a particular caste
Yeah.
is actually moving away. The skill-based education.
Right.
Now, what is your perspective about this caste-based system in India and the communities in general in India? Discussing about the communities are the building blocks of the nation,
Yes,
and communities for the economics has built the nation.
yes.
Communities for the politics has sometimes destructed the nation.
Right.
So, what's your perspective, Dr. David, on it?
Well, the society, traditional society, has an organic order. It had different classes of people and doing different things. And some of that was necessary because you didn't have public education, you didn't have machines, so people had to uphold a certain type of social order. Today there needs to be a different kind of community, which is a community of higher awareness and inner connections. Right now, community is based on outer connections only, finances, politics. And so those communities tend to be more destructive or divisive. To hold the society together and to have it evolve in a positive way, we also have to have the satsang and the spiritual communities to counter the entropy of the disintegration of the communities or the commercialization of the community. If community is just based on money, it's not a community, it's just a vested interest.
Right. And if you look at, I always have a dialogue with His Holiness Dalai Lama. So he used to propagate the concept of compassion.
Yes.
and secular ethics.
Right.
Now, do you feel that this compassion and secular ethics has been spoken in detail in Indian Vedas?
Well, the idea of compassion is an essential part of all the Dharmic traditions, which is a recognition of the commonality and the unity, interdependence of all existence. And the idea of a universal ethics is there.
Right.
In other words, ahimsa, no one wants to be harmed, you don't want to be harmed. So recognizing the mood of the universe, not just the mood of the politics,
Right.
no harming is done. So those are necessary things to recognize. Yes, so compassion is the necessary energy and cohesive force to hold the society together, which requires that we look upon one another as part of the same universal fabric of existence rather than looking upon one another in terms of social, political, and economic forces only. So we need that view of transcendence.
In fact, I'm working closely for the youth empowerment with the youth of the Tamil Nadu and other part of the state in India. So what's your message to the youth in embracing the Indian culture?
Well, first of all, the youth should just first of all recognize their own nature,
Right.
their cultural heritage, and honoring the world of nature, and not only being influenced by outer influences, media, and the technology. Develop their own independent way of thinking, the one that's not based upon self-assertion, the one that's based upon unification and honoring, and try to develop a better world. Not simply revolt against those who have made the world what it is, but find a way to improve it. So because the future belongs to the youth, and to be patient, to take time, to learn, to educate, not simply to take in data and information, but to take time to contemplate, to meditate, and understand that a deeper insight is only possible through silence and calm within, not through agitation.
Thank you, Dr. David. It was pleasure catching up. Thank you so much